call this a celebration of the golden era of nuclear power. And I want to be clear about what that means. Not a golden era that is coming someday, one that is here, one that is unfolding before us in real time.
On May 23, 2025, the current U.S. administration put forth a bold vision for a nuclear-powered future. Unleash the domestic nuclear industrial base and quadruple the amount of nuclear power in the country by 2050. That moonshot mission has already begun. 72 kilometers west of Idaho Falls, Idaho is one of America's great national labs. Here in the high desert of the eastern part of the state, Idaho National Laboratory is the epicenter of what is looking like the United States' second nuclear renaissance. Right now, 10 companies, selected through a new pilot program, are building reactors big and small across the sprawling federal site. At the time I'm recording this, 4 new reactors have already gone critical. It's an exciting time for U.S. nuclear, and today I'm going to give you an inside look at the half-political, half-progress report event that INL put on for media and its staff on June 25, 2026. But first, in the background of almost every single one of these nuclear travel videos is this, my Radiocode dosimeter. Radiocode is the sponsor of today's video. This is the 110 model, which I like over the 103 model because it's 150% faster, works great with my smartphone and smartwatch, and it has up to 290 hours of battery life, which it has needed. Just in the last year, this little guy has been to Finland, Idaho National Laboratory, and the Chernobyl sarcophagus. He's been working. Radiocode has almost single-handedly changed what radiation detection means for me. It's fast, it registers 40 to 50 times more pulses than other conventional consumer Geiger counters I've tried, and it's all in a sleek, small, everyday carry that travels well. And I'm gonna be honest here, it has a great hand feel outside of the case that my autism enjoys greatly. It also doesn't freak people out on planes, which is good. But it's not a toy, either. A Radiocode is something for the true nuclear enthusiast. The mobile app allows you to radiation map areas with GPS in real time, which I've actually used in Ukraine to find hotspots. More importantly though, Radiocode doesn't just beep, it actively analyzes the spectrum of energy you're in and identifies isotopes by their output, allowing you to both detect and learn. Trust me, it's important to know whether or not something is cesium-137. I absolutely love that we have an official Geiger counter sponsor here, and I know many of you do too. If you want to explore the nuclear world around us, if you want to support Radiocode and in turn support all of our nuclear travel work here, you can go to these links on screen or in the description and pick up a unit today. Radiocode has been more than generous. I highly recommend them. So, Radiocode. Rad Max and Nuke Mog like a scientist. They probably won't use that. Back to Idaho. Idaho National Laboratory is one of America's 17 national labs. Within the United States Department of Energy, it's where most of the research for the civilian applications of nuclear happens. We've done both historical videos on INL and engineering videos in INL before, but my second trip to the site was definitely the biggest. Media outlets like CNBC, Getty, and Vice News were here in addition to ya boy, and literally thousands of employees were waiting for a series of speeches from lab leaders and government officials. It was nice to be among friends again. After the executive orders the previous May, the United States Department of Energy quickly created the Reactor Pilot Program with the goal of fast-tracking new reactor technologies. 10 companies were selected, and all of them were in the room for this media day. They are Allo Atomics, Antares Nuclear, Atomic Alchemy, Deep Fission, Last Energy, Natura Resources, Oklo, which was selected for 2 projects, Radiant Industries, Terrestrial Energy, and Valar Atomics. Like the pilot program required, each company was tackling some historically underrepresented angle in the commercial nuclear space, whether that was the micro-reactors of Antares or the high-temperature gas-cooled reactors of Valar. The program also put these companies up against an incredibly ambitious timeline. All these companies here at INL aren't just building reactors, they're racing to build new reactors. Inside this building, ALLO is trying to reach criticality, well, cold criticality first, by July 4th. All of these companies are trying to meet this ambitious deadline, and the first step in that process is making sure that you have that sustainable fission reaction. Amazingly, barely a year after executive order, 4 companies did in fact show Department of Energy-approved sustained fission reactions, surpassing the administration's goal of 3 reactors by July 4th. Antares, Valor, Deployable Energy, and ALLO, 4 advanced reactors online in a single month. That's unprecedented. The achievement deserves a closer look. Antares got a sodium heat pipe-cooled reactor online on June 4th, a predecessor to their R1 reactor, which the U.S. Air Force is looking to install at one of their bases for backup power. 3 days before the deadline on July 1st, Deployable Energy went critical with its high-temperature gas-cooled Unity microreactor. Valor Atomics not only demonstrated a sustained reaction, they used their high-temperature gas reactor to make electricity on June 22nd at Utah San Rafael Energy Lab. And finally, right on July 4th, ALLO Atomics went critical with a commercial-scale sodium-cooled reactor. But to be clear, no new reactors are producing power at INL just yet. The companies that met the USA 250 deadline in Idaho demonstrated zero power, or cold, criticality. The most important number for a nuclear reactor is the K coefficient, or the effective neutron multiplication factor. The K comes from the German word for constant. It's defined as the ratio of neutrons produced by fission in one time period over the neutrons lost or absorbed in the previous time period. So, if K is less than 1, more neutrons flying around a reactor are not hitting a uranium-235 nucleus and fissioning it than neutrons that are, and there is no sustained reaction. If K is equal to 1, then the reactor is fissioning and stable but not actually producing enough heat for that heat to be relevant. If K is greater than 1, the reactor is now supercritical. Due to the exponential nature of the reaction, fissions, and therefore heat and power, will increase dramatically, even if K is barely above 1. Case in point, to actually produce power at a plant, reactor operators nudge K just fractions of a percent above 1 to bring a large core from watts to gigawatts before bringing K back down to unity. What Antares, Deployable, and ALLO did at INL was to get K equal to 1, a sustained reaction without power production. Cold criticality is an important milestone for any reactor. It allows operators and engineers to see how everything is working in the core before it is making enough heat to power a city, or a remote hospital in the case of these microreactors. What I found exciting was that the 10 companies building in Idaho weren't just making microreactors, though those have moved the most. If the United States really wants to dominate the nuclear industry, then it has to do what these companies are doing, and make full use of the atom. When you think of nuclear power, you probably think of a large construction project like this. This is what Oklo is doing here at INL, and this is part of the equation. But what's really exciting about what's happening here at Idaho National Laboratory is that they are filling out the full range of wattages that nuclear can address. So here, in the next 2 years, they're planning to turn on 75 megawatts, but it goes all the way down to kilowatt range with a company like Antares. So now nuclear, with the help of INL and new regulatory changes, they are filling out all the different applications that you could have. You could have these large-scale electric power plants, but you could also have smaller reactors that could be put in place after natural disasters to provide power, to power hospitals in rural areas, to do desalination in other areas, to power space probes, to power things on the bottom of the ocean. Nuclear can do a lot. And it's currently being done here at INL. Thanks. The man marshaling all of this new movement is U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright, former CEO of North America's largest fracking company and board member of Oklo. The whole event was centered around him, as he was there to meet the companies, personally inspect the progress being made in Idaho, and deliver a speech to a stadium full of workers making that progress happen.
From that day to this day, the center of nuclear power, the leaders in scientific and engineering and innovation and driving the world forward with nuclear energy is right here at Idaho National Lab, right here in this community.
While I did have time to talk with the assemblage of entrepreneurs and nuclear nerds like myself, once Secretary Wright was on the move, everyone moved with him.
What a time right now that this thing is actually happening. We can elbow so many reactors are going to be running this year. 10 years from now, this will be a booming industry. But we'll remember when it was a development industry, but now putting steel to the ground, splitting atoms, creating energy, and changing the game. So God bless all of you. Incredible. I know you've all taken risks, you've all got innovation, you've all raised money, and you're all believers that you can move fast and make stuff happen. And a huge thanks also to the INL team who, dedicated their lives to drive nuclear energy forward.
The first stop on the site tour was Antares Nuclear, the first company to go cold critical. There, Secretary Wright spoke with the founders, who gifted him a hat celebrating the 53rd reactor to get K = 1 at Idaho National Lab, and they showed off some of their graphite. Next up was Radiant Industries. Its reactor wasn't there yet, but we did get a good look at the concrete shielding where that reactor would eventually sit. The really exciting thing that's happening here at INL is something that hasn't happened in 50 years in the United States. Not just talking about making reactors, but making them happen. Behind me, Radiant is installing some of their first shielding and housing that they're going to eventually put their reactor in and test it. This hasn't happened in a long time. Behind me, you can see the U.S. Secretary of Energy inspecting the site. This is a lot of momentum for an industry that hasn't had any in a long time. From there, we followed the Secretary from Deployable Energy to ALLO. I had actually been talking with ALLO for months because they were poised to be the first critical company. That didn't end up happening, but I have to admit, they're smart young communicators. Their prototypes did have the best photo ops. Last on the media tour was Oklo, the company breaking the most ground. Literally. Oklo was the one company the DOE pilot program actually selected for 2 projects at INL. Oklo's admittedly very pretty Aurora powerhouse, a fast fission commercial power plant, and a fuel assembly plant to power Aurora. There wasn't much there for me to see, but looks can be deceiving. Breaking ground this quickly, within 4 months of the fast-tracking executive orders, is one of the fastest turnarounds from design to digging in U.S. history. Our day at INL would culminate in a rally, where Secretary Wright would deliver a speech to every employee on site, save for those critical to maintaining the facility. There were thousands of them, and we sat while country music played. It was just a week before July 4th and America's 250th birthday, after all, and politics were heavily pushed.
God bless President Trump. God bless the United States of America. Let's bring a better future to our children and all the generations to come.
I have to admit, this was the only part of the day where I started to see some less than excited faces, when the political realities of all this innovation came back into view. But hey, any administration is going to celebrate their successes. After the rally, Secretary Wright was available for interviews, and I did get the rare opportunity to speak with him personally, something I feel fortunate about, considering I'm just some nuclear guy on the internet.
Like you were saying in your speech, for the last few decades, nuclear has been on the back burner of American energy policy. What was really the galvanizing force behind bringing it back to the forefront like it was in the 50s and 60s?
I think myself and President Trump just love energy. It's just the most important industry. More energy makes everything better. So every energy source that can be affordable, reliable, and secure, we want to grow. And I would say nuclear is the energy source that can be just massive. It's a little less than 5% of global energy today. It can be 50% of global energy in a few generations. But to get from here to there, we got to get this ball rolling. We've got innovators, we got new technologies, we got new interests. We just got to unleash that.
Well, then you say, it could be 50% under the current goals of maybe tripling or even quadrupling the amount of capacity that nuclear has in the United States. Are we is that goal similarly to bring 20% of the energy share up to 60%, up to 80% in the United States?
Well, you're talking electricity.
Yes.
I always talk in terms of total energy. Electricity is important, but high temperature process heat, even more important. Because without high temperature process heat from manufacturing, we can't build an electrical grid or an internet or a car or a plane or anything. So yes, nuclear's role in electricity, I think, will continue to grow from a little less than 20%. I think it could be 30, 40, 50% by mid-century. But what I'm even more excited about is to use the high temperature process heat from these next generation reactors to use it to make steel and fertilizer and plastics and concrete, to use that the biggest use of energy globally is to make things, manufacturing. That today is all burning wood, coal, oil, or natural gas. But nuclear it could be the extra leg in that process heat thing. And of course big in electricity as well. We want to see nuclear fly.
So literally. So you've talked to obviously a lot of people in the industry working on some of these innovations right now. Part of enabling all this was removing some of the red tape that has been holding up a lot of process and build out for decades. What was the process like from an industry perspective of tackling something like ALARA and linear no threshold and things like that? Was there pushback? Was it difficult, or was the industry kind of just waiting for regulations to be a little softened in that area?
Well, we needed to reform the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, just the processes of how it do it, but in a thoughtful, safe way. So to me, that always starts with humans. So Ho Ni, our new chairman of the NRC, he's a career nuclear guy. He worked at the NRC for 25 years. He worked in industry. He gets how do you achieve safety in a fast and efficient way. We got to reform the NRC. We got to reform some other federal regulations through the Department of Energy. Use our authorizing authority to get reactors built quickly. And on radiation safety standards, as you're talking about, just get a very open, candid dialogue. Let's talk about the trade-offs there. Clearly, I think the system we have right now is not a good balance of the trade-offs. Just makes things. If you want to make automobiles safe, put a 5-mile-an-hour speed limit. You'll reduce auto accidents, but no one will use cars.
But we've decided as a society that we're willing to accept some amount of risk, a reasonable amount of risk, so that we can all get there more quickly. And so similarly,
exactly, we're already accepting risk, but the risk, the standards right now just are not relevant. Just by living in Idaho, you're going to absorb massively more radiation than if you live next to a nuclear power plant.
Or Denver.
Or Denver, where I'm from. So we got to deal in reality. Radiation is part of nature. We're all dealing with it. What we don't want is nuclear reactors to contribute a meaningful increase in that's going to impact you. And we're going to be very careful about that. But the standards we have today have just been a little bit strangling of the industry. Nobody wins by that.
Right. I get this, and we can.
Least of all, safety. It's the safest way to produce energy on the planet, and we don't produce enough of it. The more nuclear energy you produce, the less energy you're going to get from less safe forms of energy. So even from a safety perspective, all in for safety perspective, you want to see nuclear grow rapidly.
Right. Secretary Wright is extremely charismatic and was undeniably excited about everything happening at INL. But having read some of his previous statements about how energy technologies can affect the climate, or not, I simply had to ask him about how all the newly proposed nuclear could help the U.S. transition away from fossil fuels and meet its climate goals.
So I get the sense that the main thrust of what the administration, what you want to do, is energy security, bringing back manufacturing via a vast energy-dense electricity source. But how does the green, carbon-free, meeting climate goals, carbon goals, how does that fit into bringing nuclear back into the forefront as well? Is that in the headspace of all this too?
So it's not in my personal headspace. I've been involved in climate and studying climate change for 25 years. It's a real issue, but it's sort of a slow moving. It's just nowhere near. It's not a top 5 or 10 issue for the planet. Energy affordability, energy poverty. We have 2 billion people without clean cooking fuels. These are giant, urgent issues. So massively growing the world's production of energy, that's so important important for human health, for human life expectancy, for human opportunities. To me, that's higher up. I care a lot about air pollution. Nuclear is super helpful in reducing air pollution. That's a positive. It's also lower greenhouse gas emissions. I think that's a positive too. But maybe for me, maybe that's the third or fourth neat thing about nuclear. It's not a top driver, but obviously others have different priorities, and their desire to reduce greenhouse gas emissions makes them rush towards nuclear. That's fantastic too. That's additional tailwind for nuclear.
Yeah, so it is something that factors into all of this decision to put so much tailwind behind nuclear.
I think it does, because I always say to people, the solution to climate change is going to be low or very low carbon generation energy technologies that are commercially competitive and deliver what everyone else's want.
Sure.
If you look at the experiments in the United Kingdom or Germany or California, if you just make electricity wildly expensive, all the industry leaves. You don't reduce carbon emissions, you just move them to where the industry goes to, and you impoverish your people. California has the highest adjusted poverty rate in the nation. They've just crushed their population. That's not a climate program, that's an impoverishment program. The solution for climate change is to develop energy technologies that are just as affordable, just as flexible, just as reliable, and are cost competitive. And today, the two big needle movers for global greenhouse gas emissions is natural gas, by far the biggest needle mover today, and nuclear is going to be the second needle mover there, and someday nuclear probably is the biggest needle mover. But we got to get started to get it there. But yes, I think it's going to be, of course, very positive for reducing global greenhouse gas emissions as well.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Hey, thanks so much.
Yeah.
While the INL Media Day did have a political topspin to it, what's happening in Idaho isn't just point scoring. I personally know people at a number of the companies there, and I know how hard they are working. Real progress is being made to, yes, unleash American nuclear dominance by turbocharging the process and using nuclear in all the ways that it can be used. For medical isotopes, space probes, military infrastructure, reprocessing fuel, desalination plants, emergency power, data centers, and more. The next few years in U.S. nuclear are going to be really exciting. A huge thanks to my many friends at Idaho National Laboratory for inviting me and my video Kevin out to the site, and thank you for watching. With your support, I'll try my best to keep bringing you the science, big and small, as the nuclear space gets more complicated, but more interesting. Until next time.